Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to our series of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. In this series, we will be sharing experiences, knowledge, and learning from other real estate investing professionals, including myself, to empower you to create and build your own personal real estate investing strategies from nuggets, using nuggets from other real estate investors, and including like tools and processes so that you can scale efficiently. My name is Debbie Balfour, and I'm a real estate investor, a professional real estate investor, and a success coach. And I'm excited to introduce you today to my special guest, Ray Vozza. Ray is a professional real estate investor himself, and he's here to chat about his journey and to share some of the nuggets from his experience with us. So, welcome, Ray.
Thank you so much for having me, Debbie. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Awesome. So, can you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you.
For sure, for sure. My name is Ray Vozza, and my company is BV and Co. Along with my wife Joanna Barrington, we are the primaries and founders of BV and Co., which is a real estate investment company. We're based in Ontario, Canada. We focus mainly on multifamily. We've done some new development projects, and we tried a few other things along the way as well. But we generally really look for long-term buy and hold properties to be able to hold on to for a number of years.
So tell us a bit about Ray, about how you got started in real estate investing.
I mean, our beginnings were pretty humble and we were pretty green at the time. It's going back to, we are family people. We have two young children. And when I say that now, the years have definitely flown by as everyone told me they would. But when I think back to my daughter's now 8, and it was just before the time she was born, my wife and I were living downtown Toronto, just on the east side in a really lovely condo. And then we were like, holy smokes, this is not going to be big enough to be able to have a baby. So we went out house shopping. We found a property after getting beat up that summer. I think we got outbid by 15 times in terms of looking. So it was the last house, of course, and we got the house, but there wasn't enough time to be able to sell the condo, as we had, I think our daughter was scheduled to arrive in about 2 weeks. So it was a really hurry up kind of period for us. Both my wife and myself were corporate employees. My background has always been in the marketing world and the agency side, and Joe has been in nonprofit, in the fundraising side. So we really became real estate investors, almost by default, right? We didn't have time to sell that condo, so we said, okay, let's rent it out, and we will manage the property. And we did that for a period of almost 2 years. And that was really our start. And then we sold the condo because things were just getting way too hectic in life. And it was just at the time before the market kind of had a bit of a dip. So we did really well on the sale. And then I think for about a year's time, we had meetings, financial investment people, people that were, in hedge funds, startups, different things to be able to invest our money, to be able to see it grow. And it was a frustrating year to be able to hear from the banks and from, quote unquote, money people. Well, you can put your money in, but it might grow, 1% this year, 2% next year. And we really kind of said, what's worked for us? Real estate. And that's what brought us back to the world of real estate investing.
So starting with your own home, like your personal home, that kind of inspired you.
That was it, right? That was it. So I remember I was really, kind of exploring the idea of becoming a real estate agent, maybe making a career change at the time. And Joe had said, you know what? There's an afternoon workshop by that gentleman that's on TV all the time, Scott McGilvery. Do you want to be able to attend? It's free and we can go and see it and that sort of stuff. And I said, well, if anything, just to say hello. I knew a good buddy that went to high school, or I went to high school with, that went on to university with Scott. And I said, let's go and attend it. And we sat there for the afternoon and we listened to what Scott McGilvery had to say. And it just started to kind of blow our minds a little bit in terms of rental properties, the power of being able to own rental properties, how this can really benefit you in the long-term run. And I looked at Joe and I said, I think there's something here. Like, I think we need to be able to kind of take the next step. So it was out of very humble beginnings. We didn't really know what real estate investing was all about. We certainly didn't understand it the way that we do now.
Awesome. So, what were some of like your strategies that you started with?
For us, right? I mean, our immediate needs were because we were living in Toronto, and there is no childcare available in the whole city. So we took on a nanny, et cetera, et cetera. And I was looking at the numbers, going like childcare is costing us more than a mortgage on a monthly basis. So cash flow was really what we needed at that point in time to be able to pay for, diapers. It just feels like you're throwing money out the window every time you go and buy them, everything like that, right? So um, we knew, being both corporate employees, we had our 9 to 5, we had our careers, but we needed to be able to do something that was going to be able to provide cash flow for us right away. So our first purchase was a duplex property that was tenanted and was cash flowing. And it was something where it was, I want to say, a very comfortable step forward. We knew that the property had good tenants in it. We knew that it had been renovated. We felt comfortable about all the information, and that was our first property, and that yielded us, I think, a little over $500 a month was that first step. And that was kind of like, okay, we've made one move, we've taken some of our funds and we've invested into this property. What else can we do? And the next step was to look at the world of private lending. And that's where we made our second deal. And those two deals yielded us a little over $1,100 a month in terms of positive cash flow. And very quickly, it started to balance the books again, and things started to feel a little more comfortable.
That's awesome. And so what was your next once you started, you did that. You had the private lending, you had a property. What was your next strategy?
Well, then came, this was really in the 2019 period, is kind of the timing that we're talking about. So then came a little bit of a shift, right? The company that I was with, I'd had a great year in 2018, received a few awards, a nice little bonus and a promotion. That was all good. But then the senior leadership was being changed over. And oftentimes it means that they're going to bring in kind of the people that they like to work with. And you could just kind of see it coming. So
Mhm.
we had an amicable exit. The company provided me a package, and I said to Joe, I'm like, you know what? I think there's something in this real estate investing, but it's going to require a bit of a leap of faith. So we knew that we had about 6 months to be able to kind of get some traction and get some things. And I spent, I think, every single day networking. That's what I thought the next step was, right? So I was phoning other real estate investors in the community that we were part of, which was Keyspire at the time, and it was reaching out to individuals, expressing interest in what they were doing, asking them for, a 5-minute coffee meeting on the phone, and being able to learn a little bit more. And the whole idea is that there's so many different kinds of strategies. Do we want to go into flipping properties? Do we want to go into buy and hold strategies? Do we want to go into value add projects? Is it residential? Is it multifamily? Is it just looking at commercial? Like, there was so much, and it was almost overwhelming. We needed that time to really talk to a number of people and start to distill down like what was going to work for us. So it was really as we ended 2019 and went into 2020, that we started to get some great traction, and we went with the strategy of joint venturing. And then, from beyond there, we had really heard great things about the power of multifamily. So, for anyone listening that might be a little bit new, I don't want to use the jargon, but generally multifamily is when you have 5 or more units under one particular home or under one particular roof. So these are your small to mid-sized kind of apartment buildings. And of course, we didn't, buy a 5 or 6 unit. We partnered up with another husband and wife team, and we went after a 16 unit. Was our first one. So
So
we
forget
realized,
minor little things. Like just
yeah,
let's go big.
yeah, exactly. Right. So we looked at the distressed multifamily as the best opportunity to really, move us in a forward motion, without some of the barriers. And some of those barriers were, now I was self-employed versus being an employee. So where the bank liked us on paper, when my wife and I both had T4s, and yes, we were corporate employees, the bank loved us. Another mortgage, no problem. As soon as I went out on my own, well, sorry guys, another mortgage may not be possible. And once we understood how commercial financing works with multifamily, that is not so much a large part of the equation. So it definitely seemed the path forward. And in 2020, we just kept on acquiring. We acquired a number of more properties, all in the multifamily kind of space.
Awesome. So there's so many great nuggets that you've just said in that spiel there. So let's get back to like the networking part of things. I think that's the important part is that a lot of people, I think a lot of new people too, they feel that they don't need to network yet because they don't know what strategy they're doing. And but for you, you figured out your strategy by networking, by talking to people, understanding what they were doing, and getting to know them. And that's what helped you kind of understand what would be the best strat, the next strategy for you. Is that, that's what
That
I gathered
That's
from what
very
you
much
said.
it, right? It was almost a process
Mhm.
of elimination, right? Where I would talk to them about, the highs and lows on the project. And, here I am just, the new guy on the block, so to speak, making all these inquiries and asking all these questions. But it was really to determine not only type of strategy, but also market location. I live in Ontario. It's a large, large province, and it wasn't just limited to Ontario. I mean, as an investor, you can really invest anywhere you want to. It could be Canada, it could be US, it could be international. For us, we wanted to be somewhat close enough to the property that we could drive to it if needed. But it was also really just finding out, like, should I be considering on Ontario? Should I be considering maybe the, Western Canada? Should I be looking at the eastern part of Canada? And what are the pros and cons of it all? So by having these phone calls, I was able to get a large swath of information from these investors that were more experienced than myself, had more time, quote unquote, in the game, and better knowledge than what I did. And I've always really liked that kind of idea, which is it's not always starting from scratch, right? The best learning you can do is from the people around you that are really one, two, and three rungs above the ladder from where I was. So that 6 months of phone calls to be able to really hone in, to be able to say, okay, I know I'm not going to go out and start to build skyscrapers. I'm not a builder. I don't have that level of skill set at this point in time. I'm not going to go do subdivisions at this point in time. I'm not a flipper per se, so I can demo something really, really well, but to make it all beautiful and ready and get it back on the market, that didn't seem like the area for us. But in terms of the multifamily, in terms of what was able to be accomplished in certain timelines, it started to line up for us and saying, okay, this is the direction we should definitely be looking into.
Definitely. So I think that for everyone out there, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're asking, well, what market should I do, or what strategy should I do? The best thing to do is, like Ray did, is go out there and network with people, understand what they're doing. Why not go to the people who are doing it and ask them, what's your market like, and what strategy is working for you, and they've already done all the research. They have got the experience. So why recreate the wheel? I think that's exactly what Brandon and I did when we started too. We reached out to all real estate investors, instead including yourself, Ray, and we were like, tell me about your market. Why this market? What do you do? Like, what's the vacancy rates, etc.? Because it's really hard to figure out, where do I start, which one do I pick, what do I Google? So really, like, understand, getting
It's
others.
really tough, right? It was like, do we look at Windsor, Ontario? Do we look at North Bay? Am I in London, Ontario? Should we be in Hamilton, right? Are we looking at Ottawa? Like, you can just go in so many different directions. And then it's like, well, what's important about that market? Are there jobs? Is it stable? What kind of
Mhm.
tenants are you getting? What kind of rents are you getting? What's the cost per property that you're looking at? And all these sorts of things. And I know some folks are really into the data, but there's also the analysis by paralysis, which is you can collect data all day long, but you still don't know exactly what to do.
Yeah.
So by really having those conversations, I was able to gather a lot of data, but also just be able to get their insights into terms of like what's working for them in what markets and what are they doing.
And even in those markets, they're able to tell you which areas to, because there are pockets of things that are not good areas, or where to stay away from, and where's really good. So awesome.
Exactly. They,
Yeah.
they tell you all the pitfalls, which is
Yeah.
really, really wonderful. And I'll also say it was an eye-opening experience going from always being in a very competitive um, hold all your information close to your chest. In my world, when I was, working professionally in marketing in the agency world, we were always competing against other agencies. They were always trying to win your client's business, and we can be competing against other agencies. And I did that for a number of years. I won business from another agency for, I think, 4 years in a row, and stripped that client away from them all but one particular property. So I understood the competition in the game. What I found extremely different was in the real estate investing community, people were open and sharing information in a way that I never expected. They would talk real numbers, they would talk real information, they would talk highs and lows, and they would tell you the things to stay away from versus, in the corporate world, it was all about getting an advantage to be able to take something away from someone versus sharing information. And it was a big eye opener.
Yeah, excellent. And so the next thing I heard you say is, as you were growing, you're, moving from your strategies, you started partnering by doing partnerships. So can you talk a bit? I know I was one of you. I think I was your first joint venture
Yes, you
partner,
were.
right?
Yes, you were. Yeah. Yeah.
So can you talk about, those partnerships and, like how that helped you grow?
The ability to be able to partner, and yes, you were our first partner and always our nearest and dearest partner, that's for sure, Debbie. um, but the ability to be able to partner with someone offers a number of benefits, right? When it's an ongoing project and you've got capital in that project, you can bring someone on that wants to be part of that project, and then you can take some of that capital and now work on your next opportunity or that next deal. And that's a little bit what we did when you came on board with us. We were like, okay, we can take some of the capital we've invested, and it's been a good property for us. But now we can bring a new partner in. They can benefit from the property, and now we can move on to something else. So it is one way to be able to continue to grow. Because I don't know anyone who has a money tree in their backyard where they can just go out and continue to pick dollar bills off and be able to say, great, here it is, kind of thing. The next thing in a partnership is leveraging knowledge and experience. And I like to partner with people, at the time and still now, right? It's those people that have done more than me, that have seen more than me, that have got more experience than myself. And that helps to mitigate the risk factor overall, because there is risk in any investment and there is risk in real estate. There's no doubt about it. It's never a sure thing. Anyone that's telling you it is a sure thing, I would be cautious of working with that individual, because markets change, things change. It is a market for a reason. Like it will shift. It will, there will be ups, there will be downs, there will be great times, there will be tough times. But over the long haul, it's going to be something that does really well. But I saw the benefit of being able to now take some of our skill sets and apply it in areas that I thought the partners could benefit and we could bring value to them. And it was that idea of being able to partner up and work with other individuals that maybe they had a bigger portfolio, maybe they had more experience, maybe they had better processes than us, in all of these particular ways. And they just knew how to do it, right? So you want to go out and get it done, but learning on the job can be expensive and it can take time. And when, part of the equation in real estate is time is money, right? You want to be able to get through a project and get to that finish line. And if it's completing the refinance, or if it's a flip, or whatever that might be, it's getting through the work process so you can get to the end. So now it's really producing the way that you want. So that's what partnerships really, really kind of spoke to me about, right? The ability to be able to leverage time, knowledge, information, and resources.
So you were able to mitigate any like risk or any of your weaknesses by bringing in partners to be able to help you with where you didn't know, and then and
Exactly.
learn from them. Right?
Exactly. And if you speak to my wife, you know that there's a lot of weaknesses. So it's fraught with things that I need to mitigate. So
Well,
yes.
we all have strengths and weaknesses, and I think that's the place we always want to start in being aware of where those strengths and weaknesses are, and then those weaknesses do not have to be a weakness. We can use that and say, okay, how do we what don't we know, and how do we fill that gap, and that's usually with knowledge and other people, right? And
And
partnering with
in
people
there
that
lies
know.
the opportunity, right? Now you can really be able to look at that and say, okay, well, this is my weakness. Like maybe I'm not fantastic at, entering information into an Excel sheet, right? And I'm not the Excel wizard out there. Okay, you can consider that a weakness, but it's also an opportunity now to bolster your team and bring someone on that can do it way better than you.
Hmm.
And learned years ago, ego is the thing that generally gets in your way, right? So if you're better at me in something and you want to be able to work with me, I'm all in, right? I'm ready to go because hey, if you can make it better and I can make it better, then together it's going to be a win-win.
Awesome. Um, what was I gonna say? I forgot. Oh, any lessons learned, any things that you say that didn't go well from some of your partnerships, but this is what we learned from it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always learnings along the way. That's for sure, right? And the mindset is it's learn and grow, right? You
Hmm.
can't always just be tallying up mistakes and then kind of beating yourself up saying, how come we didn't figure that out and that sort of stuff. You have to be able to understand that you know what you know, you're learning along the way, you're not an expert in the field as of yet, and you're working to be able to get there. Is everything going to go 100% according to plan? No. Now, how can you be able to, protect yourself and make sure? I think having very clear expectations and setting them out in an agreement or a document between yourself and a partner. Here's the things that I'm going to be working on, and here's the things that I'm responsible for. Here's the things that you're working on, and here's the things that you're responsible for. In the event that we both hit, you know, a challenge, a hurdle, we can't seem to find a solution, then we're either going to work together or we're going to bring on a third party and potentially outsource it, right? So being able to look at as many of those, what ifs, right? Well, what if this doesn't work and what if that doesn't
Hmm.
work? Those are really good on the front end to be able to identify, how are you going to be able to address those as a team and be able to say what is going to work and what's not going to work. Communication, I think, is a huge thing in any kind of partnership. And when the communication stops, that's generally where the problems arise between partners. You're not talking, you're not sharing information, you don't know what they're up to, they don't know what you're up to. And now all of a sudden, little things start to go wrong and they start to snowball.
Hmm.
And specifically in real estate where you're dealing with, these are people's, for us, yes, it's quote unquote assets on a spreadsheet, but these are places for people to live. These are their homes, right? So much like you woke up this morning and had expectations of the lights will go on, the heat's going to be there, the water's going to be there, and all those sorts of things. They wake up and one of those things isn't there. You can't just wait and sit on it, right? You have to be able to act on these things. So it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about being able to be responsible to really your end customer, which would be the tenants. So I think lots learned along the way, that's for sure, but nothing in terms of like, oh man, that was the worst decision we ever made. Like, definitely not.
Awesome. So, well, I think that's that's key. What you just said is that a lot of us we just want to get going. We want to we want to go into that delivery mode and start making money. But the importance of planning ahead of time really will step back and do some planning and have those discussions of what if this happened, what if that happens, how are we going to communicate, and all of these things is so important because then it makes it actually speeds up the process after, right? It makes everything so much smoother when you know exactly what you're dealing with, how you're going to deal with it. So take that time to plan upfront. I actually got interviewed this morning by Julie Hoffman from the Okanagan real estate group, and we were talking about my journey, and I was speaking about us. And that's when it comes to our joint venture partnership, we started speaking in November, and we didn't
Mhm.
actually sign anything until the middle of January. So because we took that time to get to know each other, to
Exactly.
we to understand each other's goals, our values, how would we work together, and also there was time that we spent on the actual contract too, to make sure that it was fair for both people. So, and because you got to know me and knew what I needed, we were able to structure the deal, not necessarily as a typical structure that you would hear normal JV partnership, but understanding what my needs were, we were able to structure that so that it would be a win-win.
And I think, you said a lot in there that is hugely key, right? Being able to get to know the partner, understand what their
Mhm.
needs are, what their motivations are, short, mid, and long term, to be able to really kind of wrap your head around it, understand, what their background is, what their stability is, all these sorts of things, and what their ambition is beyond just, maybe it's one property that you're working with them on, but what do they want to do beyond that? So there's all that to be able to go through, and then there's just the agreement. And you said, you've got to go through it, you've got to read it, got to share it with the lawyers, come back, make some changes. But then there's the actual deal itself. And for me, this is always something that really kind of means a lot in terms of being able to work deals that are beneficial for all parties involved. It's not just about, great, I need a new partner and someone has come on board, now I've made a big win. They've got to feel the exact same way. And the only way it's going to be a win is to understand what they're looking for, address their needs and tailor it. It can't always just be this simple boilerplate, take it or leave it kind of offer, because everyone has different needs out there. And I think that part of that just comes from, my marketing career, which was always really, great. I've got client out there, I've got agency out there, I've got bosses out there. There's many different levels to satisfy. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to connect with the consumer out there, right?
Mhm.
Who's king? Consumer is king. So great, my boss might like it, the agency might love it, but the consumer might hate it. So, you've got to put all the pieces together to be able to make it really work. And that's part of the fun and the intricacy. And it can be challenging too. So it's never just like one size fits all kind of thing.
Awesome. So, I mean, we've been talking here about, experience and, knowledge gained through experience, but I know that you wanted to talk a bit about the importance of education, the cost and and the importance of it. So can you talk a little bit about, that topic, how important, what it means to you?
So I think a lot of people, can get caught up in a couple of different aspects of the education, right? They can kind of get caught up in terms of the flashy ads on social media and YouTube, right? Buy my book and go out and do it all. And that seems thin and simplistic in my opinion, in terms of, you read one book and you're like now a subject matter expert and you're going to go out and, buy properties $500,000, $1 million, or even more, depending on what it is. That's a lot to risk, based on one. And I've spoken to some people, and there's always the exceptions to the rule. They can read one thing, take it, and then just go out and run with it, kind of thing. Um, then there's the other side of the coin, which is sometimes people are caught in the education funnel all the time, which is they just want to be able to take another workshop, another seminar, all these sorts of things, but it never leads to any actual action. If they've built up all this great knowledge, and people say knowledge is power, I disagree. Knowledge is knowledge, right? The power is when you're able to actually apply and leverage that knowledge to the benefit of what your goals are. Otherwise, it's knowledge. It's great, but it's academic. It sits
It
on the
sits in the
shelf.
knowledge graveyard, is what I call
That's it,
it.
right? It's collecting dust, and you're like, well, look at all this power that I have. Well, if it's so powerful, show me the results,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, it's that traction of rubber meeting the road. For us, though, we wanted to be able to start with an organization that we felt, had the size, the quality, and the integrity to be able to give us the learning and the fundamentals. I mean, I was so green. I remember making a call to the mortgage broker, and I'm sure the guy wanted to hang up on me because I didn't understand prime, lending rates plus prime. And I was just like, I don't get it. Right. And like, I'm sure after about 10 minutes, the guy was just like, dude, I'm done with you. Like, what are you even doing? Right. Getting yourself into this if you don't understand basic mortgage rates. But it's not something I ever paid attention to. It was never in my professional world to be a mortgage expert. And it's not something that, even looking back upon the purchase of our first home, I wish I'd known more about mortgages then. But that's the benefit of education, right? So we joined one organization, being Keyspire, and we learned a great amount of information. But then, right, we wanted to be able to learn more, and it was in the joint venture area. So we went out, and now we found kind of those education pillars to kind of fill some gaps out there. And every time we were able to take more education, we took more action, and it led us to that next step. And I think it's a really important thing out there. Now, I'll say this too, which is I was listening to a YouTube video and it was a 2 minute second long clip saying, people will spend $2,500 to sit in a room in a weekend and they feel that that is moving their business forward, but they won't spend $100 on a Google ad to acid test an idea in the marketplace. And what's that difference? Well, the $2,500, I'm in a room, I've got all these people around me, I feel like I'm doing great things, I can have conversations all day long, but there's no risk there, right? There's no risk of failure versus, geez, $100 to be able to put an ad up to see what the response rate is like, and they'll be able to evaluate that. Well, now there might be failure. There might be the cold, hard truth of failure saying no one responds to the ad, or your ad is so wonky that it's not what you expected. So it was a really interesting kind of reflection that I had with regards to the education. People can kind of get caught in the spiral of just, let me sign up for another membership, let me sign up for another workshop and another class, and it feels like, great, I'm making all this progress, but are you really?
So there's the two aspects there. There are people that don't want to spend the money. They're afraid to spend the money, and because they don't spend it, they can't move forward because they'll try something thinking they can do it on their own, and that could be extremely costly, a lot more costly than the education that they could have gotten. And then there's the professional students, like I like to call them, is that where that's all they do is they learn, but they're never ever taking action because, as you said, because that action means risk. However, I think the biggest risk is the fact that they're spending all this money on education and not using it. The opportunity cost of it, like, and not doing anything is the biggest risk, because doing something and failing, or it didn't work out that great, you're still saying, okay, well, that wasn't the route for me, or this needs to be changed, or something like that. In actually, so it's not actually a waste, because even though Google ads, okay, nobody responded, you know that, okay, that didn't hit the mark, right? So so yeah, definitely. So there are those two aspects of it, and you really just have to combine the two and have the education with the implementation. So
And that's it, Debbie. I mean,
mhm.
even the Google Ads is even a comfortable space, right? But let's just say it means picking up the phone and making 100 calls, right? A lot of people out there, that is a very intimidating process where they don't want to hear yes or no on the phone. They don't want to hear that their idea may not work. But as entrepreneurs, right, that's really what it's all about. It's about being able to put yourself out there and testing ideas and testing concepts to be able to see, like, does the market want this? Have I come up with the next, awesome sliced loaf of bread kind of thing? And are they willing to be able to do it? And if not, then I need to listen to what the market is going to tell me and accept that no. And maybe instead of bread, it becomes like bagels, right? That they want kind of thing. So you have to learn to
Pivot.
shift.
Yeah.
But, I also think too, when we're young, failure is not such a big thing, right? When we're in our teens, something doesn't go well, hey, just get back up the next day, go and try it again, no big deal. You get into your 20s, and as the years go, that risk of failure becomes such more of a looming kind of, you know, monster in the closet, so to speak, that a lot of people don't want to be able to say, like, yeah, I took a risk and it didn't end up working for me. And now I feel like I'm a complete failure. You took a risk and, it didn't end up the results that you were looking for, but probably somewhere in there was some information that you could take towards getting those results. Like I said, if it's not bread, it's bagels, or maybe it's going to, you know, non-glute or whatever it is kind of thing. But it's always about really understanding what the feedback is, right?
Yeah, taking that tuition value, listening to that feedback. Agreed, because we may think we've got the best idea out there, but if the market doesn't want it, then what's the point? Like, who's going to buy it?
Exactly, right.
So yeah.
And at the end of the day, like, let's say you have to spend 6 weeks behind that idea to get up and running. Don't you want to know that someone is there that wants that service or wants that product? And by doing a little bit of a quick little ad or a little bit of a survey or making some phone calls to find out, hey, yes, I'd buy, yes, I'd be interested. Okay, fantastic. Now it kind of puts a lot more focus on those next periods of work to be able to get it up and running. And it takes away a little bit of that, what's going to happen at the end of this kind of,
Definitely.
nagging thought in your head.
Yeah, definitely. So awesome. Um, so in the same vein, can you tell me a bit about surrounding yourself with the right people? Because there's the education part, educate yourself, take action. But let's talk a bit about, how does surrounding yourself with the right people help you?
Surrounding yourself with the right people is huge. So you've got the education, but now you need to be able to surround yourself with the people that you're able to take action with. And that's not just the people that say, "Oh, you're super amazing and what you're doing is super awesome." And not just the cheerleaders out there. And cheerleaders are amazing. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a definite place for the cheerleaders out there to be able to kind of rah, rah, rah on. There's also the naysayers, the doubters out there. They're saying, are you sure you know what you're doing? Right? How long have you actually been in real estate? Like, how many properties have you owned? Right? Do you know what happened back in the 80s? Were you there then? Right? All that sort of stuff. So you don't want to put yourself into a position where it's just, everyone's just happy to be able to, have the, the hurrah party where it's just like, "Oh, you're doing great. You got out of bed this morning and you woke up and you made a cup of coffee. Woohoo!" Okay, like I was doing that anyways, right? Nothing's really changed out here.
Yeah.
You also can't surround yourself with the naysayers and the doubters out there, the people that never wanted to be able to take a risk, and therefore they're going to tell you it doesn't matter what you do. So it's finding not only people that are going to help you push you out of your comfort zone, but also support you in that journey. And that's not an easy thing to do. And that takes time and that takes some networking, and to be able to find those communities out there of, you feel comfortable with those folks, you feel inspired by those people around you, you can learn from what they've done, and you know that you can draw upon their experience, and they are willing to be able to give you some time. They're willing to invest their knowledge and time into you to be able to say, "Listen, I'll sit down with you for an hour. We'll go through this information. I want to make sure you truly understand it." And that is, a huge part of the success formula. There has to be the work ethic and being willing to put in the work and being open to risk, which opens you up to the opportunity for advancement. But at the same time, you have to be able to have people around you that are going to support you. And if you don't have those two, it's going to be a long, lonely road. There's no doubt about it. So we found communities, like the Keyspire community, of amazing individuals and people that we've really aligned well with. And we found, family values that worked out well, and goals and ambitions and life stages that worked out well. I mean, love people that are, in a different life stage, right? But it's hard as a well, I'm not young, but as a parent with young children, right? And everything you have to balance with someone who's at, the retiree stage. And it's just like, well, great, we've just gone into retirement, our kids are now, into their 30s and that sort of stuff. It's like, well, we're still dealing with this and this at home, and it's always these things. When you can surround yourself with other like-minded individuals that are really going to be able to help you out, and be able to support you and push you at the same time, that's when you're in that right space.
So having people that will challenge you, that will support you, but also has gone through what you've gone through, and that can actually give you valid advice. Then,
Very
like you were
much.
saying, and it's okay to have a naysayer if that naysayer is actually where you want to be. But if that naysayer is like they're sitting in there with their cardboard box, is sitting in their cardboard box and telling you, well, you shouldn't do that because blah, blah, blah. Right. So definitely it's the, so can you share a little bit of like, from your experience, like something that's where you had the right people there and what that outcome was?
For sure. I mean, I'll talk about one of the groups we joined, being the Synergy Mastermind group. We were approached by one of the founders in the starting year, and literally, I felt like it was too out of our league at that point in time, right? And that was my biggest concern. I said, like, you've got some people that are accomplished, people that have been, doing real estate for anywhere from 2 to 5 to 7 years, right? We're fairly new, like we're like a year and a bit in, right? Do I have enough to, number one, contribute to the group? Like, sure, I can learn a ton, but I also don't want to get laughed, out of the room either by, some of these questions about, can you explain what prime is again, please? So, those kind of things really, showed us the benefits. And then it's the mindset of those individuals in those kind of communities. So, what do we do in our first year, right? By joining a mastermind beyond just, a real estate membership, we were now able to really have, intensive conversations on a week to week basis about challenges in our businesses, how we needed to be able to grow them, how we need to overcome some of these hurdles, and how do we get to more of that success point, or the wins, right? Just stacking the wins kind of thing. And we've continued to do that, and even now, right, I really look to be able to surround myself and work with people that I look up to, that I aspire to, and I admire from what they've been able to accomplish, and that I know that are going to push me. So if that's a partner, if that's an investor, if that's an alliance that we're making, it's always about pushing, pushing, pushing. You can't just sit still and expect to be able to grow. They're not synonymous. And growth is uncomfortable, right? Growth means that you're doing things that you may not be normally doing. You're taking, risks. Maybe it's about doing your first Facebook Live. Maybe it's a post. Maybe it's, going out to a meetup. Maybe it's putting together a business plan. Maybe it's putting an offer together. But it's really about being able to kind of continue to push you to take that next step and that next level. And I've always seen this like a ladder, which there are people well above me, and if they can reach down and help pull me up those rungs, then it's going to benefit me. And then in turn, I know that I'm a good person, or I try my best to be a good person. I want to do that for other individuals too, and be able to say, listen, I can help you, right, with some of the knowledge that I've learned.
That's awesome. I love that imagery. As you were saying it, I was actually picturing somebody above the ladder, like pulling me up. So it's a great imagery. Another imagery about ladders that I know I saw that Michael Ponti posted recently is about the ladders that have these big, like, big spaces between it. So it's harder to move up, so you have these, the top of the ladder is your big goals, and then you've got these big goals inside your big goals. It's like it's too big for you to get up, but if you make them smaller, now you've got those steps that you can easily and much quicker move up that ladder. So I that imagery is like in my head now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So speaking of, goals and, moving forward, what's your plans for this year?
This year is going to be a really good year for us. 2023 was a challenging year for many people in Canadian real estate market. We know the story about the Bank of Canada, 8 interest rate rises consecutively. Market shifting, right? Rental demand shifting. There was a hold on immigration, and all of a sudden, now it seems that that's no longer the case. And man, the demand out there is insane in terms of people that need, quality spaces. And yes, generally, when you're getting started or you're new in a province or a country, you may be in a rental position versus an ownership position right away. So for us this year, we decided to really streamline and focus. We had different projects, and Joe and I started at the beginning of the year saying, what's working and what's taking up our time. And that's a big difference out there. There's stuff that you can be working on all the time, but it's not actually really working for you. You're not making any money, and it's not, moving you forward at all. It's just taking up your time all day
Like
long.
busy work.
Busy work, right? It's
Mhm.
not productive and it's not advancing you, but man, is it ever keeping you busy all the time? And you're like, oh, there's a million things to do. Okay, great. Show me the outcome. And you're like, well, I accomplished 100 things today. Okay, show me how it moved you forward. And that's where we were, slightly in the 2023. We got into a busy mode versus a productive mode. So this year, we decided to streamline some of our properties, to really shrink our portfolio down to a level that we felt was definitely, not to say that it was unmanageable at the time, but where we could focus our best efforts for best outcomes. And we also grew at a very rapid pace where we had multiple projects on the go. And I would say some people can do very well at that, others maybe not so. And I think we learned some lessons in terms of what our bandwidth and our capacity is. At the same time, it's not just about working 24/7. We've got young kids. We don't want to look back and see these golden years kind of by us, and then they're into their teens and we can't get their attention anymore. You got family and life needs that come up as well. So what's going on for us in 2024, right? We've taken some exciting positions, and we're doing some work in the US now, really about commercial land acquisition and disposition. So that's a big learning curve and an exciting space for us to be in. We continue to work with our team here in BV and Co to reinforce and bolster our operating systems and our procedures and making sure that everything runs like a Swiss watch. In terms of property wise, we've taken a look at some of the properties that say, you know what, they're not really moving us forward, although they're great properties. It's just not fitting our needs right now. So that's fine. We're happy to go ahead and sell those. And I know that there's going to be some people that are saying, no, you never sell a property. You never sell a property. I don't believe that to be true, right? Especially, in the first, the first years of that journey. There might be things that you tried that just didn't work out the way that you expected. It is okay to be able to sell a property at the end of the day, take your learnings, understand what worked well for you, reapply them, or move on to other areas. And you shouldn't feel any guilt about that. And you shouldn't feel any kind of, oh, I wasn't a success because of. It's a journey, it's an experience, and ultimately you're going to find out what's best for you by finding out what works best for you. And you'll really do that through application. So yeah, we're going to downsize our portfolio this year. We want to get some of our time back. But also part of that is a real focus on ourselves. And I'll give a big shout out to my wife, which is she's just completed her 75 hard as of last night. And it's been amazing to watch her 75 days getting up every single day, outdoor workout, indoor workout, drinking her water, reading her pages, doing all the things she needed to do on a day in and day out basis. And for us, we've really taken that message to heart, which is if we're going to be the best, for ourselves, for our kids, for our family, for our community, for our investors, and for our projects, it's got to start with self. So the idea of now waking up early, getting in exercise, looking after your personal fitness and making that not just really a priority, it's got to be a mandate to be able to start the day. That's a huge shift in a focus for us, where in years past, I would have thought, well, once I become successful, once I've got the money, then I've got the time, then I'll start to worry about, maybe it's, healthier diet or getting myself in better shape. But now we're putting that first and foremost. We're like, nothing happens before we get this done every single day. And it becomes a non-negotiable. And it feels really good. Although it's difficult, it feels really good.
Well, the hardest promises I find to keep are the ones to ourselves. Definitely. So yeah, definitely. So that's important, and I've learned this for myself too. That you can say, like, life is short. Life is very short, and tomorrow isn't promised. So yes, it's important to plan for the future. But when you look at those big goals of what you want to be, I don't think that you need to say in all cases, well, in 5 years, when I achieve this, then I'm going to do this. Like, what can you do? Maybe you can't do that huge, you won't be able to achieve that big, that big, tremendous goal you had. But how can you break it into little bits so that you can start appreciating those things today, some of those things today? So if it's like, I want to world travel in 5 years, well, why wait 5 years? Why not take one country and hit that country this year? Put that into the budget and put that into your goals. So definitely what you're saying, Ray, is really important. If our goal is to live a better life, spend more time with our children, etc., like, how can we look at how we can start fitting that into our days now, and that becomes part of our strategy, not just the investment, what we're going to invest in. And that's really important, to look at the lifestyle we want, etc., and have that drive our real estate strategy. And like you said, everybody's different. So if you want to sell that property, I'm at the same state too. I'm looking at, what, properties maybe isn't the strategy I want to do anymore. I want to look at land development, and I always love the coaching part. So now I want to build up my coaching business, and I'm not someone that can do 10. I don't want to do 10 million things at the same time. I want to be very structured and focused. So those are the two things. So I am looking at myself too, selling off properties where they make sense. So
Mhm.
right, if I have to hold them right now, then look at what strategies to do that. But I'm at that point, and if I can sell them, I will, because at the time they served me, they were great learnings. I couldn't become a coach without all of those, all the strategies that I tried. And, but at the same time, at this time in my life, it's a little bit different. And, properties isn't necessarily where I want to be. I want to build out a city. Right.
That's exactly it,
Or
right? Like
to-
I recently completed, my 2024 vision board, and I took a look at it, the difference between 2023 and 2024, and there were some mainstays on there, right? There were some
Mhm.
things that I increased in terms of the importance and size on the board, family being one of them. I put that at the top of my board. I'm like, family's got to be everything, because for me as a dad and as a husband, part of the way that I measure success in my life is, you know, am I creating those moments, right, for my children to be able to look back, right? I.e.,
Yeah.
the Christmas period that just went back, talking with the kids. They just went back to school yesterday and having that conversation, how was the Christmas break, kids? Did you enjoy yourself? All those sorts of things. But it's not just about, did you get what you wanted for Christmas? Like that's such a, like sure, anyone can just go to Amazon and hit the order list, but it's about, tell me what memories were really special to you during the Christmas period? What mattered the most to you, right? And for me, that's a big, part on the measuring stick overall. And then, it's about being a good partner to my wife, right? And be able to support her and the things that she's doing so that she can go out and do better. And then part of it is, those commitments you make to yourself, right?
Yeah.
Out there. But when I look at the board, right, in terms of what I had previously, real estate is a big part of our lives and our focus still. There's no doubt about it. But are there other areas that are really shining through right now? Most definitely. Right. The goal to be able to, be up at 5 a.m. every single morning. And before I used to be like, no, I'd rather the sleep in. Now I want to get up at 5, even though, yeah, I don't, well, now I go to bed earlier, so I still get my good quality 7 hours. But it means that I can get up and spend that first hour and a half of the day dedicated towards myself, right? I mean, I've layered in something that I never thought I said I'd do, but I'm now doing a yoga challenge for the next 30 days. And part of that is just because I do have some lower back issues. And I've realized I can lift as many weights as I want, but I've got to work on my range of motion, my
Flexibility, the strength. Yeah.
flexibility, and be able to really get that back in alignment, right? So I've done yoga every day this week. And it's a lot harder than I expected.
Oh, it's hard. I sweat like crazy. It doesn't look like you're not, you think that you like cardio, you understand that cardio, that you're going to sweat. And you think, oh, yoga, there's just these moves and things like, but I know I sweat the most when I'm doing yoga.
And sometimes it's painful, like doing some of these stretches. My body's not used to doing those things. And I'm like, this is honestly to goodness painful right now. But after you hold the stretch for 30 seconds and it's all done, I'm like, oh, I feel a lot better. So,
Yeah, definitely.
sometimes it's doing the things that you don't want to do. And that's really in the pure magic, right? It's,
Yes.
the magic is do the things that you don't want to do to be able to get the results that you truly do want.
And I think looking at what you're saying, Ray, I think that's key. For many of us that are in the real estate, investing, yes, we want financial freedom, but there's something more to that financial freedom. That financial freedom is for a reason, right? And what we're doing in real estate investing isn't necessarily, we say, oh, I want to do my passion, but your passion actually isn't in real estate investing. Real estate investing is what you enjoy doing in order to get your passion, which your passion is spending time with your children. Your passion is traveling. Your passion in so it's helping you get there, and you're doing something you enjoy to get you there, but it isn't your passion. Your passion are those things, right? And that,
100%.
right. And
100%.
it's
It's a
all time
vehicle.
freedom. I think most of us, we want financial freedom, but the financial freedom isn't the end result. The end result is actual time freedom. So if you're spending your time today so busy doing these strategies that are taking you away from that time freedom, you may want to relook at that and say, is this the right strategy for me? Or how can I get back some of that time? And what I'm loving what you're saying is productivity, taking off things off the list that isn't useful, or giving it to somebody else and say, yes, I need this done, but it can be done by someone else to give me back that time freedom.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Because, it can be time, it can be pressure, and a number of different things can go and it can start to work against you, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's so important. And to your point, right? Like, I often think about, I want a certain, amount of money, right? But the truth is, if I don't have the people in my life to be able to enjoy it with, I mean, how boring would my life be, right? I say this now, married man, kids, right? Been married for over 10 years, two wonderful kids, right? At some point in time, though, I was still the single guy, but like I couldn't imagine ever now, going back to just being solitary single anymore. Like I need, I've become too too used to and love too loving of being able to have my
Mhm.
family around me. But just think about like, okay, you've got all the money in the world, but there's no purpose for any of it anymore. What's it really about,
Yep.
right? And I think you do. As you progress, you start to learn more about yourself, and this journey is really a journey about self-discovery, right? It's about the person that you want to become. So, who do we want to be? We want to be people that inspires, those around us, those people that want to be able to go ahead and live their best lives, and whatever that is for themselves. We want to be one of those inspiration points out there. We want to be able to serve our community in ways of being able to give back, right? Yes, in monetary ways, but also in ways of initiative, right? And actions that we can go out and do things. I want to be able to set an example for my children and not, be able to give them, everything on a platter and show them how to be able to put the work in and the efforts in to be able to achieve what you want. I want to be able to, travel and see more of this beautiful world out there. And I want to be able to be a positive force of change. And, I appreciate this opportunity so much because just this is one of the things that lights me up to be able to engage and share with others and have really meaningful conversations. And, at the end of it, right, I don't think anyone looks at their, sits on their deathbed and, tallies their life by their bank account, right? It's the memory that you've created. It's the people that you've helped. It's the lives that you've enriched around you. In whatever shape and form, from community to spiritualness, and so on, right? So there's a lot that we can all do out there to be positive forces of change.
Definitely. We can be the change instead of complaining about the world. We can be the change that we want to see. It starts with each one of us. So definitely very inspiring, Ray. So many great nuggets. I think in summary, really, we want to get everyone thinking about what is it that you really like, this money that you want to create. Um, right. What is it being used for? Like, what is it really? It isn't about the money. It's what you can do with the money. So start thinking about that. Start thinking about bringing things forward. How can you include it in your daily life? Look at your strategies and see what strategy is right for you based on your situation. Ignore what everybody else says,
Mhm.
right? And do what is right for you. Networking with others so that you can learn from them. You can learn about the markets, you can learn about strategies, you help you get unstuck by but you have to get out there and network, and that means picking up the phone, messaging someone on Facebook, making a comment on somebody else's posts. So going out and doing those things, partnering with others where you don't have the skills, or outsourcing to make you stronger. It's not a weakness, it's a way to strengthen, and an opportunity, like you said. So all great things, surrounding yourself with the right people, and paying for that education, that coaching, where it makes sense, where you're going to actually action it and not have it sit on the fence. All right. Like,
Great summary, Debbie. I couldn't set up any better myself. You've totally put the cherry on top of the sundae, that's for sure.
awesome. Thank you so much, Ray. It's always wonderful speaking with you. And I'll share when I share this video. I will share your contact information for anyone that wants to reach out, connect with you, and learn more about what you're doing.
Wonderful, Debbie. I want to say thank you very much, and I wish you best of success as you continue along with your journey. It's always great to be able to connect and speak with you, but also just see the evolution and where you're going this year. I'm really super excited, and please, extend my best wishes to your entire family. Excited to hear what they were up to at some point in time. And I know it's going to be a great 2024 for all of us. So thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for what you're doing to be able to give back to the community in so many meaningful ways.
Thank you so much. Same to you, Ray. Give my love to the family.
Will do.
Take care.
Bye now,
Bye.
Debbie. Thanks again.
You're welcome.